Hey everyone, this is Jeff Risdon from the Detroit Lions podcast and Lions Wire. And this week we are doing a solo show. Chris and I couldn't make the scheduling work with his work schedule. So here you go. Still basking in Sunday's victory, glorious victory over the Jacksonville Jaguars. Honestly, it wasn't much of a game. And as I'm recording this on Tuesday morning, I just got done with the first film walkthrough. And I'll be honest, there wasn't a lot to take away from it because it was so easy. It was like the Lions hit the easy button. They handled their business very well. 52-6. It is technically a come from behind victory because the Jaguars did, in fact, score first on a 59-yard field goal by Cam Little. Great kick, by the way. He showed you why Jake Bates couldn't beat him out at the University of Arkansas for the place kicking job. That happened. So the Jaguars kicker who nailed the long field goal is why Jake Bates wasn't the kicker at Arkansas. It doesn't explain why Bates couldn't win jobs before that, but we're very happy with Jake Bates. And that actually leads me into one of the things that I wanted to talk about was the coaching, because I think this game, more than anything else, was a testament to how well coached the Lions are. And I'll tie Bates back into that in just a bit. But great teams destroy inferior opponents. So they sap their will to live. They eradicate any hope very quickly. It's exactly what these Lions did in this game. Now, this was a potential trap game. Trap in air quotes, obviously. Jaguars came in owning the number one pick in the 2025 NFL draft based on their record and tiebreakers. They left Detroit still in possession of that number one overall pick. And they're a mess. They're playing without Trevor Lawrence. They're playing without Cam Robinson, their left tackle, who's pretty solid, good player. Playing without Tank Bigsby, the number one running back, and it all showed. You know, that's not a good football team, and they're not all so well coached. And I think that's one of the evident things that goes on with when you're a bad team. But the Lions could have taken this game easily. They could have, played with their food, to use the expression that I toy with Ben Johnson sometimes, and they didn't do that. They absolutely came out and handled business. They were prepared. They were focused. They were the hot knife through butter that they were supposed to be. It's not as easy to do as you might think, and that's a testament to Dan Campbell not letting his team have a letdown after an emotional win in Houston, a good Houston team that we saw last night annihilate the Cowboys. The Cowboys. Oh, it's nice when Detroit is really, really good and Dallas is really, really bad, and that's where we're at right now. We could be America's new team. I'm good with that. Bandwagoners, jump on. You're welcome. This is a welcoming team, and that's a fun team. And you saw Ben Johnson not have to do a lot against these Jaguars. Look, that Jaguars defensive front, Trayvon Walker, Josh Hines-Allen, they're good. Roy Robertson, good players. Their linebackers are as fast as they get. Speed ain't everything. This game showed that. Yeah, just a thoroughly methodical of a win as a 52-6 game can be. Because it felt like the Lions did whatever they wanted whenever they wanted to on both sides of the ball. You saw some pass rush. You saw some great linebacker play. You saw some incredible downfield coverage. Now, again, you got to couch that with the fact that it was Mac Jones. Mac Jones is terrible. No, they're not winning the game with him as their quarterback unless they play somebody really, really bad. And there are some bad teams out there. Tennessee comes to. But yeah, the Lions have handled their business against the bad teams very well. Look at the Dallas game. And yes, Dallas is a bad football team. Look at the Tennessee game. Look at this game. They're really good about making sure that there's no hope after the opening couple of drives. And that's been true in all of those games. And that's something that's a hallmark of a great team, is that they take the lesser opponents seriously and say, hey, raise your game to our level. We're not coming down to your level. It's a very difficult thing to do, and I don't think that gets appreciated enough. So I wanted to call attention to that for the Lions and Dan Campbell. Aaron Glenn, I thought, did a great job of not overlooking the fact that the Jaguars do have, like, Travis Etienne. That's a good running back. Brian Thomas Jr., phenomenal rookie wide receiver. Would have loved to have seen him in a Detroit uniform. Obviously, neither here nor there, but he was a guy that a lot of us in the draft community liked him specifically for the Lions and the role that, Tim Patrick is playing now, or J-Mo's playing right now. And so, like, it's fine. He's a good player. Real good player. Evan Ingram's a good tight end. Like, they have some weapons, and I think that the Lions respected that and took it seriously, and that's one of the reasons why I'm very confident in this team going forward, is because they don't play with their food. They ate it, and they ate everything on the table. And just, as I said on the Huge Show yesterday, I'm recording this on Tuesday morning. I love to pre-write as much as I can during the game. And in the Houston game, that game ended and I didn't even have a title. This game, halftime ended, and I had already written the core of what I was going to write, with the Lions winning and running away with it. And there was nothing that happened in the second half that negated that, which is great. That's exactly what we all wanted to see, was a complete annihilation of a bad football team, and that's what they did. So, the Colts. I want to talk a little bit about a couple of individual performances. First off, Zadarius Smith, his first time in a Lions uniform. Again, the level of competition, degree of difficulty wasn't huge, but there were some things to like. One of the things that I liked was that they lined him up all over the place. He played right side, he played left side, he played inside, got after it quite a bit. And I think you saw what to expect out of Zadarius Smith. He is a movable chess piece around. He and Josh Paschal can kind of do the same things. He and Marcus Davenport can kind of do the same things. And again, we talked about this last week. Chris and I did on the live show. Zadarius Smith is not your Aiden Hutchinson replacement. He is your Marcus Davenport replacement, and could very well be that going forward as well. We'll see how he works out in the final weeks, but I liked what I saw. I liked the usage. I think that that's something that will portend well as they play the Colts with a very different type of attack this week. And as you get into playing the Packers and the Bills and the 49ers down the road. By the way, last place, San Francisco 49ers, who would be well out of the playoffs if it ended today. And I'm not sure they're going to get back. But it's that way. But I thought Zadarius was very effective. He earned, I believe he earned, I haven't actually looked at the grades. My guy Billy said he does the PFF grading stuff for LionsWire. I basically published it without even looking at it much. So I assume he did well. He should have done well based on the film review that I did. He looked pretty good. So I was very pleased with that. The other one that I wanted to talk about was Graham Glasgow, because he's not played well lately. And he didn't start this game well either. He had 2 blown blocks. He was responsible for both of the first 2 incompletions, which were deliberate throwaways by Jared Goff. Goff didn't have a lot of stress in this game. But what I liked about Glasgow was that he bounced back from a really bad opening drive. And for the rest of the game, he was perfect. Yeah, perfect. Not easy to do. In the NFL against anybody. I thought he saw things very well. I thought his footwork sharpened up a little bit. I thought he stayed square better in pass protection when he was, sort of. One of the things that he's had trouble with is when a guy attacks one shoulder over the other and doesn't try to go straight through like his core. And I thought he did a much better job of presenting himself as a more formidable object and a wider object to try to get around. He protected one shoulder or the other very well. That's a very encouraging sign for Graham Glasgow because he's not played well lately. I don't think I'm breaking any news here. And I thought he played very well in this game again after the first drive, and that was nice to see because you saw even in this game early on that when Jared Goff does get pressured and pressured quickly, it throws things off. He had to throw some balls away. So the offensive line, though, overall, just a great game. And by the way, the reserves came in and played very well. The end skipper looked good. Alshika, Nice, they got some run in the game. I want to say they got about 20 snaps apiece, and they handle business as well. Now, it's the end of a blowout game. Craig Reynolds comes in, first touch. I think he got 19 yards. Just in waves, to quote Trivium. It was fun. This was a fun game. You needed a fun, stress-free Sunday. I know I did. And I got it, and it was great. So, put a little bow on the on Jaguars. Lions did what they had to do. This does take me back to Dave Phipp and Jake Bates because, and I've talked about this a little bit, but I'm going to reiterate it here. Jake Bates was not good this summer. I shouldn't say that. He wasn't confidence-inspiring this summer. Not even for a day. There were some great kicks. There were some lengthy kicks, but there were also like, can you make a 45-yarder, please? Can you make an extra point? Can you make 5 extra points in a row? Because he didn't do it. Like, everybody who was out at Allen Park saw it. He was struggling. And I asked Dave Phipp straight up after a practice after the first preseason game. I asked him, are you bringing in veteran competition? Even just like the mentor. And he said no. And I don't remember I can't quote Phipp exactly because he's very verbose. If you watched this press conference last week when he took down PFF and DVOA, you'll know what I'm talking about. By the way, that was brilliant. Loved it. Love you, Phipp. So good. But he talked about he saw something in Jake Bates in his mentality. And, aside from the leg talent, he liked the mindset. He liked how Bates approached it, and he wanted him to get every rep that he could. And more reps. Again, this is a guy who didn't kick. He couldn't beat Cam Little in college at Arkansas. Wasn't the place kicker, I believe, was Texas State or Texas Southern, one or the other. Those two always get transposed on my mind. I should know better because I lived in Houston, and I still confused them. My bad. Florida Atlantic and Florida International have been that way for me for a long time too, on the draft side of things. But I digress. Phipp saw something, and they believed in him. And Dave Phipp believed enough in him to say, hey, we don't need to go get somebody to replace Michael Badgley to compete with Jake Bates. We're good here. And that's not, again, anybody who was out at Allen Park this summer will tell you that was not an easy call. That was not necessarily a popular call with those of us in the media, but Phipp stood by his guy and had his back. And now Jake Bates is rewarding that. And I think that's really awesome because that's not every coach would do that. Not every coach would stand up for their guy. Not every coach would see the talent through the foibles that Phipp did. And they deserve a lot of credit for that. And I think that's one of the things that's a hallmark of this team is that they recognize that they can develop some guys. And guys who want to be developed can do very well here. Then that's one of the keys in talent acquisition, both on the college level, in the draft, undrafted free agents, but also in NFL guys, pre-existing veterans that come in. They signed David Long this week, and I'll get to him in a minute. But bringing in a guy like Zadarius Smith, finding a guy like Ben Neiman, kind of off the special team scrap pile from Tennessee and Kansas City, but seeing something useful in him and developing that. We're going to see a lot of Ben Niemann in the coming days because he is your primary Alex Anzalone replacement. Again, we'll talk about David Long and replacing that in a second. But he's a guy who fits well with what the Lions want mentally and culturally. And that is as important as fitting in talent-wise and having talent at the NFL level, having physical traits, having attributes, having some pelts on the wall even. There were some guys that, would have made sense from a accomplishment standpoint at the trade deadline. And the Lions didn't really consider them. I'm learning more about this all the time as I talk to more people. Like, there were guys that a lot of fans were pining for that they're like, that's not who we want here. Wouldn't work here. And that's a difficult concept to embrace. Even for me, who's somebody who's around the team more than most fans are, and more than some guys who write about the team are. It's a drastic change, and it's a different type of team. And it's working, and that's why it's working. The old Matrix thing. Nobody's ever tried this before. That's why it's going to work. That's what these Lions are doing. And it is working because they focus on culture and having guys in that they trust, that they respect, that respect them, that respect the game, that respect the coaching aspect, the teaching aspect, the fundamentals on development and doing your job, not screwing up. You can be a great player and make some great plays, but if you're missing plays, missing time, missing assignments, this regime doesn't have a place for you. They don't tolerate that. And they're doing a great job of whittling that core. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Penei Sewell, Jack Campbell, who's really stepped up lately and playing some very, very good football. Frank Ragnow is that kind of guy. David Montgomery is that kind of a guy coming in from the outside. Sam Laporta, Brock Wright, being the best freaking Brock Wright he can be. So that's all they ask of him. He does exactly what they ask of him. They don't ask him to do things he's not good at. One of my favorite tenets is, one of the hallmarks of good coaching is ask your good players to do what they do well often, and don't ask them to do things that they don't do well often. Matt Patricia's looking around like, what? Huh? I don't understand your words. That's why you're a bad coach. That's why you're not here anymore. That's why we're happy to have Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, Sean Dion Hamilton, JT Barrett. I don't think these guys get enough love as the lower level assistants on this team. Steve Hayden as a tight ends coach. All of these guys, Antoine Randall as wide receivers coach, have a focus that we're going to work with what you do well, and we will help you grow what you do well. But we're not going to ask Shane Zylstra to be an inline blocker and try to clean out a backside linebacker. Like, that's not what they're good at, and they're not asking them to do that very often. I think that's some growth on Ben Johnson's part, quite frankly, as a play caller, and I like it. It's good. If you watched the Texans last night against the Cowboys, and Texans are fresh because we just beat them the weekend before. God, that was fun. They don't do that very well. Bobby Slowick as an offensive coordinator is a guy who doesn't seem to understand what his offensive line can and can't do, what his quarterback is great at and what he's not so great at. And I think that's a failure on their part, because that's a better football team than their record indicates. They should have beaten the Lions. They didn't. And that's because the Lions are a better coached team from top to bottom, from head coach down to offensive quality control assistant. The Lions are better there, and it shows. And that's one of the reasons why the Lions are Super Bowl favorites for the first time ever. And when my boss sent that to me to write up yesterday, I did a double take on it. I'm like, I'd never really thought about it in that context before. I'm like, damn. Yeah, They should be. After the Bills beat the Chiefs, to be the man, you got to beat the man. Well, the man got beat, so now we can be the man. And if we have to play them, I think we can beat them. We play the Bills in a couple weeks. Going to be a huge game. Think we can beat them. Think we can. All right. Got to talk a little bit about Alex Anzalone and replacing for the defensive captain. Broke his arm. Friendly fire. Pine Branch got him. It's going to happen. Unfortunately, he's out for 6 to 8 weeks with a broken forearm. He should be back. Check out Dr. Liao's amazing content both here and at Lions Wire. He'll give you everything you need to know about the medical prognosis for Alex Anzalone, and he'll be back for the playoffs. It's kind of cool that we're 9-1, and we don't have to worry about the playoffs. 9-1 teams make the playoffs. But actually, I have something coming about all this, but look for that later. Also, draft stuff's coming. I know nobody in Detroit is thinking about the NFL draft right now, but for those of you who have it in the back of your head, wonder who the Lions might be looking at in the first round. Got something coming for you later this week, hopefully. Everything goes well. Be good. But we got to replace Alex Anzalone. And they signed David Long to the practice squad, former Titan, former Dolphin. Dolphins. The Dolphins are a very strange team. So he was one of their leading tacklers. He might have actually been their leading tackler before they got rid of him. And my guy, Russ Brown, him here from Bish and Brown, did a fantastic breakdown about it on Lions Wire. Please check it out. I did a little bit of my digging on my own, and my thoughts on David Long are, it's easy to see why he appealed to the Lions with this sort of hustle, flow, hit type of game. It's also really easy to see why no other team had any interest in him and why he's on the Lions practice squad and not on the active roster yet. He's guessing a lot, and that's not something that you want to be doing as a linebacker. Whatever it is, he reads the field a little slower than I would like him to, and his reaction, especially after he suffered a hamstring tweak this year, is not. Do you remember Alex Anzalone, his first year here? And Lions fans thought he was unathletic and not very good because he was a little bit late seeing a play, and then he didn't quite have the reactive quickness to get out there, and the straight line speed wasn't quite good enough because he didn't react fast enough. That's David Long in Miami. That's a different David Long than played before that, and you have to wonder if there's a schematic misfit there. I don't think the Dolphins are a particularly well-coached defense. I think that might have something to do with it. The change of scenery will probably do David Long very well, but he's going to get up to speed. We'll see if he's active this week. I kind of doubt it because I think Ben Neiman has played very well, and this is a name that I don't think Lions fans paid enough attention to when they got him. He was really good this summer. Played very well coming in. The career special teams guy who's very, very fast in a straight line, can do one thing on a play very well. If you ask him to multitask, then you're starting to ask him to do a little bit more than what he's really good at. Again, the Lions are pretty good about doing that sort of thing. We just talked about that. But I think Neiman's going to get more. I think you're going to see a lot more of Rodrigo, which in run defense will probably be pretty good. I think fans will appreciate Rodrigo. He is the best tackler of the linebacking group, and that includes Jack Campbell. If Rodrigo gets a paw on you, you're going down. The issue with Rodrigo is that he doesn't have the range in coverage, and he doesn't have the natural instincts and savvy in coverage that Anzalone did. I think Alex Anzalone, despite what PFF will tell you, is a great coverage linebacker. Not good, great. And they're going to miss that because they don't really have anybody that can do that. Neiman kind of has the athleticism, but doesn't have the je ne sais quoi to be that guy as in coverage. Jalen Reeves-Maybin is out. Who knows for how long? That's they're going to miss him there too. Germ was a pretty good coverage linebacker. Didn't play the run well at all. It's one of the reasons why he's been a reserve, but he could cover. So that's going to be some finagling there. It's going to be a hole. Teams that have a receiving tight end that can exploit the seam and can sit in a zone comfortably, and a quarterback that can get it there and kind of hit him, leading him to where the defense and the help isn't coming from. That's not Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson presents his own problems as the Colts. But those teams, Josh Allen throwing to Dalton Kincaid, going to be an issue. Jordan Love throwing to Tyler Kraft or Tucker Kraft. Tyler. Can't keep all the Crafts together. That matchup just got worse for Detroit. And that one's coming up. Caleb Williams, when he's got his head on right, throwing to Cole Kmet, who's a pretty darn good tight end. That matchup just got less advantageous for the Lions. So there's some knock there. One of the players that a lot of fans thought might be able to help would be Ifeatu Melifonwu. And if he is indeed coming back and was activated yesterday, crap. He's hurt again. Unfortunate. He's activated so they can put him on IR again or end his season, basically. He hurt a finger last week in practice. I believe it was Wednesday. Don't know the extent of the finger injury. I wasn't there. We only get to see the opening 10 minutes of practice anyways, where they're basically warming up. And then once they start doing anything play-wise, it's off the table. Well, the reason why I don't go over there a lot during the season, although I am heading there this week for an unrelated issue. But we're not there to watch practice. We're there to talk to the guys afterwards. And again, I don't get over there nearly as much as I'd like to, but try to hit some things here and there. But if he is out again, Dan Campbell said he's going to be out for a while with a finger. I'll just put it this way. Carlton Davis broke his thumb Thursday, played Sunday, played through a lot of pain, and he talked about it afterwards. If he has a finger, hurt it Wednesday, going to be out a while. Look, I know not all injuries are the same. Go back, I think it was 2 years ago. If he once missed 5 weeks with a pinky finger that wasn't broken, say I'm not optimistic about his return is an understatement. There is playing hurt, there's playing injured. There's a difference between being hurt and being injured. And I had hoped that if he had learned that, I had been told by some people around him that he started to get that, and now I'm questioning that again. Again, I don't know the extent of his injury. Fingers are strange. I've broken 7 of them. I have volleyball hands. Different things happen. I get that. But when you have a cornerback who comes out and clubs up his thumb, because he broke it and is playing through a lot of pain, when you have Taylor Decker get a bone taken out of his foot so he can play more, I can't imagine that felt good. The ectomy. You never want to hear the term ectomy because that means they're taking something out. I learned that from Dr. Leal. Thanks, Doc. When you get Frank Ragnow playing through all the chronic pain that he has, by the way, it seems like he's doing better this year. I'm playing fantastic. He will be an all-pro center this year. If he doesn't, we riot. Just not. And that was one of the reasons why I was concerned about the safety core before the season. That was before I knew that Brian Branch would be an all-pro. He should be an all-pro. Should be in contention for Defensive Player of the Year in his new role. Kirby playing much more single high and it fitting like an absolute glove. And he, to his credit, he overcame the hip surgery he had this offseason, which was one of the concerns that I had about him. Can't tell. His range is incredible. His tackling has gotten better. He's keeping his head up. He's seeing what he's hitting more. It's what we wanted from him. Good coaching. So, assuaged my fears there. Brandon Joseph playing pretty well. playing. He's not iffy at the end of last season, but he's better than iffy other than the final 8 games of last season has been throughout his career. So we'll take that. But yeah, that's an unfortunate. It is frustrating as hell, honestly. I'll leave it at that. But he's not going to be able to replace Anzalone. And he was a guy that made some sense as a guy who could do some of the things that Anzalone does, specifically going forward and attacking within the box. But that's off the table. I wonder how much more we're going to see of Trevor Nowaski playing. He's played pretty well as the Sam, again, replacing Derek Barnes. All these freaking defensive injuries, man, and they're still coping. They're still a top 5 defense with all that crap. Aaron Glenn, my God, what a coaching job Aaron Glenn has done this year. He is earning the head coaching interviews and probable job that he's going to get. And we'll jump more off that bridge when we get to it, but we're probably going to have to jump off that bridge. And God bless Aaron Glenn. He's taken a whole lot of crap from a whole lot of people, including on this podcast. And they do have an award for for an assistant coach of the year. You better believe that I'm strongly considering voting for Aaron Glenn on that. We don't vote for that for a long time. I haven't looked at other candidates enough around the league, but AG is certainly a front runner for that. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting how the Lions replace Alex Anzalone. Jack Campbell's doing his thing in the middle, but there are some things that Anzalone offers that nobody else can really do. So that is a bit of a concern going forward. And again, David Long, probably not that guy right away. We'll see if it clicks for him here. It clearly did not in Miami, regardless of what his stats might say. I talked to a couple of people who covered him in Miami, and they're just like, he is not good. Like, what are you doing? And that's why it was very illuminating to watch Russ's videos that he sent me. He didn't include them all in the article, but some things to like. Talking about linebackers, and I'm going to use a visual aid here because today is November 19th, and this is one of my prized possessions. My Ohio State Chris Spielman jersey. I have a Lions Spielman jersey, currently unavailable for reasons. Chris Spielman is my football hero. I grew up in Ohio as an Ohio State player. I used to go to Ohio State games all the time. My dad is an alum. We had season tickets throughout my childhood. Chris Spielman is my hero. And another reason why he's my hero is because of how he handled the passing of his wife, Stephanie, from breast cancer. That happened 15 years ago today. Stephanie Spielman passed away. And Chris, look it up on YouTube because he gave a speech about it, and he's been very integral in cancer research. He's remarried. He's happily remarried. But there's always a piece of him that's with Stephanie. And I do get emotional talking about this because everybody's been touched by cancer, man. And it's something to think about. And I think we as Lions fans, we adore Chris Spielman and everything he does for this team. But sometimes we forget that there is the man off the field, and he's very quick to remember it. And I love it. And I wanted to call attention to that because it's important to me, and I hope that it's important to you. So rest in peace, Stephanie Spielman, who passed away 15 years ago today. I wear that jersey every time I do Race for the Cure. Unfortunately, my knee doesn't allow me to do it much anymore, but I have worn that. And I live in Michigan. Wearing an Ohio State jersey, not so popular. I'm not a Buckeye fan, but I am a Chris Spielman fan, and I adore wearing that. And every time I wear that, I get respect. I actually wore it to an Ohio State Michigan game several years ago, and people were like, "Okay, we're not going to kick your ass because we love Chris Spielman," and that's the right way to go with that. So I wanted to call that attention to that. You know what? that's probably a good stopping point for right now. We get the Colts this weekend. You're going to have some previews coming up but I will just say this, and I said it about Jacksonville. I say it to a lesser extent about Indianapolis, but if the Lions play their A or even B game, the Colts will not come close to this team. It's all about the Lions, and we talked about it earlier. They're not playing with their food. They're taking these things seriously. There's no such thing as a trap game for this team. That makes me very happy. I'm not concerned that, look, the Colts can do some things. Anthony Richardson, they go for big plays, and they will probably hit a couple. I happen to think that the Lions will hit more against the Colts defense, which has some players but isn't congealed in a way that contains things. It's not going to be 52-6. I like the over for those of you who bet. I don't even know what it is. I haven't looked at the line yet. But you'll get more preview stuff coming. And again, keep an eye out for some draft stuff as well. With that, Jefferson from the DLP and Lions Wire saying, goodbye, go Lions.